it isn't obvious to me at all that the country's going to be able to survive another 4-year round of liberal, utopian, globalist, environmentalist, net zero catastrophe.
It's f***ed up. Like, even after seeing everything that happened with him promoting Donald Trump in the United States, and like right now, just the very, very self-evident horrors that is enacting, like to the point where even a lot of the right-wing pundits who normally would be supporting everything Trump does are kind of being like, what the f*** is happening? He's willing to try and do the exact same thing in Canada.
Reaction to the imminent Liberal victory in Canada. My word. Oh, God.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
As some of you may know, and some of you don't, Canada suddenly has a new Prime Minister. His name is Mark J. Carney, and he's the replacement for Justin Trudeau, running the Liberal Party in Canada. That means that we Canadians need to know who Mark Carney is, and to the degree that Canada has a role to play internationally, that everybody needs to know. So, if you want to know who Canada's new Prime Minister is, and you want to know who Mark J. Carney is, and whether or not you should support him or vote for him if you're Canadian, or what you should think of him if you're part of the international audience, then this is the podcast for you.
I like how it comes in like blood. Who is Mark Carney, Canada's new Prime Minister? Welcome to the Carnival.
Carney.
Well, it's just a weird place for Jordan Peterson to be in right now, specifically because, I mean, the guy was really pushing for Donald Trump, and then Donald Trump gets elected, and immediately he's like, you're mine now. What do you mean? You, country, I want it. What? Yeah, 51st state. I'm taking Canada. So now all the Canadians are like, Jesus Christ, do we need to buy guns? And then right afterwards, Jordan Peterson starts doing interviews with other people where he's sitting there being like,
oh, well, bloody hell, I didn't know it was going to be this bad. How are we supposed to predict?
And you're like, well, yeah, man, I don't know, probably the words that were coming out of the guy's mouth the whole time. He was not subtle about his, desires to, I mean, he was quoting Mein Kampf. Come on. He was quoting Mein Kampf. He got called out for quoting Mein Kampf, and then when he got called out for quoting Mein Kampf, he admitted that he quoted Mein Kampf, and then was like, when I said it, it was in a very different way.
Is a mystery to Canadians in large part, not least because he's been a political figure for a very short period of time. And the election that's being called is a snap election, so Canadians aren't going to have, and the rest of the world aren't going to have a lot of time to get to know him before the determination of his status as Prime Minister is going to be finalized. Now, I want to make a case for Carney first.
I'm not going to watch this whole thing. It's an hour and 26 minutes. I do want to say, though, that he focuses primarily on environmental initiatives because, he's got a lot of problems with them. He is not a fan. He wants to work on a Ezra Klein style abundance policy going forward, where it's basically like, hey, everybody, if we just build more things, we have more stuff. If we have more stuff, we have more abundance. If we have more abundance, more people eat. It's actually the eco-fascists in the opposite direction who want to reverse course and reduce the amount of stuff that you have. So this is not a good thing. We need more abundance, and abundance can be good too. I mean, Ezra Klein tries to spin the whole thing as if like, well, I mean, like if we were to grow way more crops, way more, food, then ultimately that's going to obviously have some net positive effects on the environment. So that's good. It is good to obviously have more greenery and more shrubbery. So I don't see what the problem is. And the problem is that like you don't feel in an interconnected world sometimes that the amount of space and resources necessary to produce stuff on the scale that we're already doing could be disastrous. But like say meat production, we all love meat. I enjoy myself a good smash burger or some fried chicken kind of thing. I try to eat a lot less of it because it's terrible for the environment. But you don't think of the fact that, like, well, in order to eat that meat, the amount of water that is going to be necessary and the amount of food production that is going to be necessary just to feed an animal for a period of, a year so it can grow before it can be harvested. And like that done on a monstrously huge scale suddenly becomes less about abundance and more about the fact that it actually uses up tons of land, does forest deforestation, tons of resources to make it. And then once you're scaling that up, we eventually get to, it's very, very costly to have that sweet, sweet, delicious fried chicken in front of you. And then the other really shitty thing about that is that effectively we waste it. We end up wasting a ton of the food that we actually produce. But that's not the way Jordan sees the
really do a good job of valuing the world. So he points out, for example, that it's preposterous that Amazon, the company, is valued financially, economically, higher than the Amazon rainforest. And while that sounds good in principle, it's a very vague and foolish claim. What Carney is pointing out is that the free market system...
We would not be alive if that forest is not here. Society functioned and was completely fine, well, you know, for better or for worse, without Amazon existing. Amazon's a relatively new thing, and our timeline extremely new.
Can't attribute a financial value to everything, and that and that's true, and it's a problem. But his solution is a technocratic solution, and understanding that helps us understand the implications of his educational pathway and his career. See, Carney, who has been a stellar advocate for the World Economic Forum policies, for example, believes that because the free market cannot adequately value everything, that it's up to a handful of highly educated elitist technocrats to step in and substitute central planning so that the inadequacies of the free market system are properly...
I mean, if that's what he wants, that'd be badass. I don't really trust anything Jordan Peterson's saying. I'll be totally honest with you. If he did want to, start implementing state planning in order to say, I don't know, take a handful of corporations out of the profit motive and then start actually directing them, I think he's trying to refer to it as like he's going to do the same policies as China, or at least trying to scare you, right? It sounds a lot scarier if you're basically like, yeah, his implementation is definitely going to be centralized planning. You got to watch out for that. I mean, that's basically how you get communist China. But no, Carney, and it sucks because, like, you know, if he was honest, he'd actually admit that a lot of his policies line up directly with his. Carney is actually pretty shit when it comes to his economic endeavors. He is not looking to make radical change. You're going to get standardized neoliberal policies under him. It's going to be just like not as extreme as the conservative.
Rectified. Now, the question that begs is, well, which experts, why those experts, what legitimacy do they have as, let's say, unelected bureaucrats at the UN or the WEF, or with regards to the Economic Union, the European Economic Union, what legitimacy do they possess to make those central planning decisions, and by what principles are they willing to value those things that can't be valued from within the free market system? Well, we already started to delve into that when we talked about the diversity, equity, and inclusivity provisions.
And honestly, if you're trying to apply like academic reasoning to DEI, fear mongering, you won't be able to from Jordan Peterson's like vantage point. It's racism. It's not even thinly coded racism. It's racism. Whatever angle you want to like tackle it from. If you want to be like, well, diversity, equity, and inclusion policies actually harm people because they don't allow the best people to be hired for the job, and so you get very dangerous situations where there are people working in industries where perhaps, more qualified people could have been helping them, and it's like, it's racism. You have all found a way to mask your slurs a little bit. You don't have to say the N-word anymore. You can now say DEI. Before that, you could say CRT. You don't have to go after LGBTQ plus people. You can always say SJWs, virtue signaling. There's a lot of little coded ways to bring that all up.
In Carney's thinking. But the answer to that, points us in the direction of the most fundamental appropriate critique of Carney's thought. So Mark Carney and his globalist compatriots genuinely believe that carbon overproduction constitutes an existential threat to humanity. Now, the IPCC, which is the UN body that delves into such things, has not recognized that there's any such thing as a climate emergency. There are climate concerns.
This radical commie wants to have the audacity to tell you that we're apparently overproducing carbon and it could have disastrous effects for the planet.
No. The UN was very clear on this, and the IPC didn't actually say the way they did. He's not as bad as you think.
And but that's not the same as an emergency. And Carney recently claimed to eliminate the carbon tax from Canadian consumers, but that's a temporary pause. And he's transferred the carbon tax into the industrial domain so that it's hidden from.
Just for anyone who's not Canadian, if you want to know how the carbon tax worked, effectively the carbon tax would make you pay more at the pump by levying a tax on consumers who are using the gasoline. And the idea would be the more people drive, or the more you need to drive, then the more you will be taxed specifically through this specific provision. The money then from that carbon tax was supposed to be redistributed, and it was a very effective tool to people of lower income. They would do wealth redistribution. If you need to drive more, effectively the assumption would be that you have more money to do so, and then it would pass that off on to people who have lower incomes. That's all there was to it. It doesn't solve the problem, but as many like climate experts have agreed, it's better than nothing. That's all there is to it. It's not nothing. It doesn't solve the problem though. Shout out to JP's grandma and her pubic hair brush. Thank you, J. Cass. I appreciate it.
Canadians, and he's going to continue to pursue it. Now, how do I know that? Because the primary idea in Carney's book Values is that the climate crisis, which translates into carbon dioxide overproduction, is so dire and existential a threat that every single financial decision that every individual and every institution across the world makes should be focused on the necessity to ameliorate carbon.
I wish that was the case. That's just not, though. But that is honestly what we need to be doing. I know they're fear-mongering. I know they're trying to get you into panic mode. But that is genuinely how you should be thinking of how we rearrange our entire economic system right now. Absolutely. It is like the two things are deeply intertwined. Energy consumption, and the utilization of energy to produce goods, commodities, food, services, stuff like that. They're directly intertwined. So yes, we have a climate emergency. We are barreling towards boiling ourselves alive. We're aware of what to do. We have the tools to be able to solve the problem. But at this point, there's a lot of financial incentive to continue barreling down the nightmare situation that we find ourselves in right now.
Production above all else. And so make no mistake about it, even though Carney has taken steps to back off the carbon tax.
All he did was basically do that to take away the Conservatives' entire platform. And it had quite a bit of effectiveness. Like if you have an opponent who's basically like, my entire platform is axe the tax, and you're like, okay, I did it. And then it's like, oh shit, well, we have to come up with an entirely new election strategy then. So anyways, he goes on to talk about climate crisis, ? Well, maybe we need global greening. He's also a really big proponent of this idea of global greening. But it's basically a neoliberal solution and a capitalist solution to climate change. What if we started just growing more stuff? Like what if instead of, trying to restrict the amount of output we have in terms of carbon and stuff like that, we maximized the amount of production we have, say of, again, crops, fields, anything potentially that could also reduce the amount of carbon in the atmosphere. And it took me a while to have a good response to this because I didn't know a lot about forestry. I had to talk to a person who works in forestry, and effectively it's not as simple as simply just planting a whole bunch of trees and the problem's over. He's like, there's a lot of things you have to put into account, especially if you're working in mass forestation. I was speaking to someone who does it in British Columbia. The reality is that planting vast amounts of seeds also requires you to understand what the conditions of the soil are. You need to understand the ecosystem. And there's not just simply, if you plant a seed in a pot and the tree grows, great. In the ground, in the earth, it is a interconnected ecosystem of a whole bunch of different things working in tandem. Everything from networks of mushrooms, shout out to Last of Us, to the other trees, plants, life that exists within that. And so if you were to suddenly grow a fuck ton of trees in one area, that is also going to reduce the amount of nutrients that is in the soil in one area. So it's way more complex than simply saying that you could plant a billion trees to solve it. Not that planting more trees is not a good thing, by the way. I'm not against that. So this whole thing's about climate, net zero, climate. He's I'm going to assume, because I want to get to his conclusion, weaving the entire thing into it's part of a larger globalist conspiracy to control you, because that's ultimately where all the climate deniers and the far right are leading, that they want to get everyone afraid that there's a globalist conspiracy to control you, and you can do it from the top on down. You could be like, and that's why the globalists are trying to put in a whole bunch of immigrants into your country because you're already scared and you're worried about immigrants. So there, right? Boom. The globalists are trying to put immigrants. Why? Because they want to change the voting demographics to control you even further. That's also what communism is. Be scared of that as well. So it's a bad thing. Why it'll be much worse.
And that's a continuation of the scrap that Smith and the West has been having with Trudeau and the Liberals and the East as a whole. That's not going to rectify itself. It isn't even obvious to me that the country itself, which the Liberals for the last 10 years have regarded as an entity with no real central identity anyways, it isn't obvious to me at all that the country's going to be able to survive another 4-year round of liberal, utopian, globalist, environmentalist, net zero catastrophe. And so don't be thinking that Carney's a new guy. And don't be thinking that his stellar resume indicates that he's going to...
It's fucked up. Like, even after seeing everything that happened with him promoting Donald Trump in the United States, and like right now, just the very, very fucking self-evident horrors that is enacting, like to the point where even a lot of the right-wing pundits who normally would be supporting everything Trump does are kind of being like, what the fuck is happening? He's willing to try and do the exact same thing in Canada. Just rinse and repeat. Completely lie and distort what is taking place, act as if there's like just an inevitability to the communist takeover or globalist takeover or whatever weird version of it he wants to say. Like, the country won't survive, literally. You know, we've got a year left, 1 year left exactly, if the liberals stay in power. Rather than look at it as in like... it's actually benefiting you to have liberals in power, Jordan. I know it's not going to play well with your base, but they are exacerbating wealth inequality under neoliberal policies in the way that you like. They're just not completely destabilizing society for the benefit of like rapid wealth accumulation and concentration in you know, 4 people's hands in the span of just a couple of months. It's just like, do you want the extreme version of capitalism or just the regular version of capitalism?
Produce some kind of economic revival in Canada, because all the evidence points to the fact that he's going to continue to pursue the net zero delusions that he's already established as the center of his entire edifice of thought. And if you don't believe me, and maybe you don't want to or can't, or you doubt me, read Values yourself. And then you'll see, read the first 3 chapters and the last 3 chapters, because the middle of it's just boilerplate. It's only there to make the book thick instead of pamphlet length. And so an hour of reading and you'll figure out who Carney is. Now, if you believe that carbon dioxide output on the part of Canada constitutes an existential threat of the sort that requires us to become poverty-stricken over the next 40 years, well, we virtue signal about how the planet could be saved while doing absolutely nothing about it.
But you don't have to do it as a virtue signal. They keep saying that there's only one of 2 options. This is it, okay? You either have to accept this premise, this lie, and then we all have to live in perpetual servitude to these global elites, where it's like we already live in perpetual servitude to the billionaire class. You don't have to keep on bringing in some random conspiracy about it. Or what's option B? And then it's like, option B, well, why don't we utilize existing technologies? Why don't we remove the financial incentive from a lot of the industries? Why don't we take away the privatization of, say, the energy extraction industry? And why don't we actually start moving a lot of these resources into economic opportunity? Like, it was a really good pitch by AOC and Bernie Sanders to try saying that this is the Green New Deal, specifically because we're not going to look at this as like, hey, we need to roll everything back, go anarcho-primitive, return to monkey, and have absolutely no possessions. It's why don't we look at this as an opportunity to shift a lot of industries that are directly related to, again, fossil fuel extraction and consumption into greener, well-paying jobs and benefit everybody.
Without actually addressing any true environmental problems, then Carney's your guy. And if you think that core Canadian values are the values of the radical utopian environmentalist... So it was true that Carney took a leadership role as the UN climate envoy, and it was true that he organized like 400 of the world's biggest financial institutions to pursue what's essentially a net zero agenda. And that happened, let's say, roughly 5 years ago. Okay, so let's ask ourselves, what's happened in the interim? And the answer is, despite his success in doing so, all the big players have bailed out. BlackRock, Vanguard, all of these big players have decided that pursuing the net zero agenda, DEI and ESG, that's not going to fly. And so even if you believe that Carney had been proper...
I love when he leapfrogs in real time.
Oh, and then bloody hell, Mother's brush.
Really successful in organizing these big financial institutions to hit the net zero targets, you're faced with the problem that they don't think so anymore, and that whole coalition is falling apart. So my interpretation of part of the reason that Carney's motivated to become prime minister is because his international career has collapsed in failure. And so now where is he? Well, you might as well go to Canada. It's kind of a ratty little backwoods country anyways, and you don't really want to bother with niceties like actually having a seat and meeting Canadians and being elected. You can just hop in because you have this stellar resume and you're the Bank of England former governor, and you can tell people what's what. And you can tell Canadians that you're an outsider and that there's going to be some sort of economic revolution. And you can do that while lying about your actual goals, which are net zero, or
Oh, this is not 2 times. This is 125.
failing to explain how you made such a cataclysmic mistake. And you're going to do that because you were a complete bloody failure on the international front. And that's embarrassing. And it's going to become stark bloody obvious in the next 5 years.
I'll give him this, and this alone. It's that, like, he doesn't have an easy job trying to convince everyone that a person who aligns with him on a lot of things economically is a disaster. It's like this guy is doing the exact neoliberal policies that, even though you don't want to admit it, is most likely the stuff that you want, and it's going to continue to, again, exacerbate wealth and concentrate wealth into the hands of the very rich. It just won't do it in, you know, the fireball fucking Kool-Aid man style Trump strategy, which is just to destroy everything.
And so, and then I would say, as I already said, that if that wasn't the case, then Carney would let Canadians get to know who the hell he is. And he wouldn't have called a snap election that will unfold in virtually no time. And I might also say,
by the way, this is what all of you wanted. As soon as Carney got elected as leader of the Liberal Party, immediately all the Conservatives were like, he has to call an election. He has to. He cannot govern without a mandate. He has to be elected by the people. Even though I don't really understand the parliamentary system, this is what has to happen. And so they were like, oh, okay, sure, yeah. Here's the election. We're doing it. And now all of a sudden it's like, oh,
He just calls an election willy-nilly. He can just do that. What does he think he's doing?
he would have agreed to come on this damn podcast as well, because I offered him that opportunity, because I could be sitting here talking to him, and his staff was reasonably polite in their insistence that they couldn't find the time. But I'd also like to point out that
doesn't shock me that no. By the way, he had time to do Nardwar, all right? He had way more time to do Nardwar than Jordan Peterson. So that should just tell you everything. I'm sure they were very polite, but like, he's just going to sit there and it's like,
Okay, so, as part of the globalist elites and the cabal of the Bilderberg Group and Soros, explain why you want to control the country with the claw.
and it's like, what the hell? Why would I do that? Why would I subject myself to that weird, racist, anti-Semitic piece of shit who wants to talk about global conspiracy theories when you can do this?
Every Canadian election, I approach all the different party leaders and see if they will do an interview and a hip flip.
Nardwar. 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 Nardwar.
Who are you?
Mark Carney, Prime Minister of Canada.
Mr. Carney, welcome to Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada.
It's a great pleasure to be here.
Right off the bat, Mr. Carney, I have a gift for you, a Richard Brodeur record
King Richard.
from 1982.
Yes, no, hey, goodbye, that's right.
Now, is that the Stormin' Norman era?
It was the Storm and Norman era. And you know what? I coveted that Northland.
Yay, no seriousness in politics. I know. If you don't know, Nardwar is basically like a local legend who brings people on. Like every major, I think, musician at some point or another has been on a show. But he does the thing that, like, I'd say the only person who comes close is First We Feast. First We Feast seems to be able to dig up really obscure facts about people to the point where, like, sometimes people will sit across from Sean and be like, who's your research team? How did you know that? Nardwar takes that to just bizarre new heights to the point where it brings people to tears sometimes, because he'll just sit there with a little pack of things. It's like, I got something for you. And they'll hold it and like, this was the original record that my mom gave me and told no one about. And literally was the biggest secret of my family. How did you know? We have to know. You're just like, what the hell? How does this guy find out about all this kind of stuff?
That's what I was curious about.
We had poached eggs because we decided that was healthy. Yeah, and good coffee.
And I was wondering, Mr.
Nardwar made Eric Andre uncomfortable. So I assume to do that one, because that one also blew my mind, he didn't shower, I think, for a long period of time, or maybe weeks, because like Eric Andre was standing beside him and it was just like, you are ripe, my friend. I have. Did you not shower as a bit to like?
Carney, would you do the hip flip game with me?
Oh, that looks like so much fun. Yeah, why not?
Oh, that's amazing because Paul Martin did the hip flip game.
Paul Martin did the hip flip game? Okay.
John Kretchen did the hip flip game.
Really? Okay, good.
Justin Trudeau did the hip flip game.
That doesn't surprise me.
Stephen Harper did not
Yeah, that's fair.
do the hip flip game. His security carried me away.
That doesn't surprise me either. That doesn't surprise me. I'm sorry that you were carrying.
Show the footage.
Well, hopefully we've got much more under control here.
We do. This is kind of fun. This is, whoa! Stephen Harper, please, will you do the hip flip? You guys don't have to carry me. Will you do the hip flip with me, Mr. Carney?
Yes.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, then let's pull it out.
Canadian politics, y'all. This is just so you know, this is the peak, the zenith.
Why should people care about Mark Carney? Why should people care?
Because we're in a crisis. I can fix it.
Wait, how do you play? I assume you push up against another person, so you're both connected at the hip. And I don't think you're not supposed to use hands, right? I think you're supposed to just connect with your bellies, and then you have to simultaneously, like the two of you have to coordinate the motion to be able to get this thing in the middle to spin around. But they're allowing them to use their hands. I think that's cheating. So.
Somebody tells me you're going to win.
But wouldn't do Jordan Peterson's. I like how he did this, wouldn't do Peterson's. Just like, nah.
Don't let this happen to you. Go to serfscoffee.com to order the only end-to-end owned indigenous coffee company that delivers blood-free, conflict-free, and cruelty-free beans right to your door. 0% of people who drink serfscoffee.com have exploded spontaneously. By ordering right now, you get 10% off plus free shipping, and it's the best way to enjoy delicious coffee while not exploding. That's serfscoffee.com, serfscoffee.com.
Hey, if you'd like to unlock secret bonus episodes as well as uncensored content, go to patreon.com/The Serfs. This show is produced by Anna Loves Riley, Arian McCarthy, Cheryl Alvarez, Comrade Junkie, Doug Caddy, Everything Important, Hagbard Celine, Jimmy Sombrero, Multimondi, Omni, Political Puppy, Preston Kroll, Quiet 185, Riley and Anna, Roller Dragon, Cernicus, Stellar Gwyn, Sebastian Demmel, Travis McClinton, Trincell, Words Greenwood, with additional support coming from all of these amazing human beings right here.